You know, when we talk about fasting in Islam, or Siyam, it's so much more than just skipping a meal. It's a really deep spiritual practice, and it has its own set of rules. But what are they really, and what's the whole point behind them? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down all the essentials, drawing from the super clear guidance of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymin to give you a straightforward, practical guide. Let's dive right in. Okay, so before we get into all the technicalities of what, we absolutely have to understand the why. And this verse from the Quran, it's the key to everything. It sets the entire frame for the practice. Fasting isn't some new thing. It was prescribed for people long before us, and all for one specific goal, so that you may become righteous. This one idea is the foundation for every single rule we're about to cover. So right off the bat, we see that the goal isn't just to make you feel hungry. Nope, it's about building something inside of you. Taqwa. You hear this word a lot. You can think of it as God consciousness, or maybe just a deep, mindful awareness of your actions and your intentions. It's all about what's happening on the inside, not just what's happening on the outside. So think about it like this. The physical part, the empty stomach, that's just the training ground. It's like the gym. The real workout is building the self-discipline to control your tongue, your eyes, and your actions. The goal is to train the whole person, not just the body. And this saying from the Prophet Muhammad just drives the point home so powerfully. I mean, really, what is the value of not eating or drinking if you're still lying or gossiping or acting unjustly? This shows us that the spiritual and the ethical parts of the fast are totally inseparable from the physical act itself. You can't have one without the other. And that term he used, Kaul al-Zur, it's a big one. It's really comprehensive. It doesn't just mean telling a lie. It actually covers all forbidden speech, all forbidden actions, and even things like being aggressive or ignorant towards other people. So the bottom line is this: your character and your conduct are just as much a part of the fast as your empty stomach is. All right, so with that foundation set, here's our game plan. We'll start by looking at who's required to fast. Then we'll cover what actually breaks the fast, the specific conditions that have to be met for it to be broken, and finally, what the consequences are. Okay, so now that we've got the why locked in, let's get into the who. Who is actually obligated to take on this spiritual training during the month of Ramadan? So, who exactly does this fall on? Because, it isn't for absolutely everyone. The teachings lay out 6 very clear conditions that have to be met for the fast to be required. So there are 6 conditions in total. The first 3 are all about personal responsibility. You have to be a Muslim, be of sound mind, and have reached adulthood. The next 3 are about your circumstances. You have to be physically able, you must be a resident and not traveling, and for women, you can't be currently experiencing menstruation or postnatal bleeding. If all 6 of those boxes are checked, then the fast of Ramadan is a requirement for you. Now, this is where you can really see the compassion and flexibility in the rules, especially when it comes to that condition of inability. There's a crucial difference between a temporary inability and a permanent one. On one hand, if you're sick with something like the flu, and you know you'll get better, you simply don't fast, and you make up those missed days later. But on the other hand, for a permanent condition, like very old age or chronic illness, the requirement actually shifts from fasting yourself to providing for others. You feed a person in need for each day that you miss. Okay, so we know who fasts. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. What actually breaks the fast? These actions are often called the nullifiers, these specific things that will void your fast for the day. Some of these are pretty obvious, right? Eating, drinking, and intercourse, no surprises there. But it gets a little more specific. It also includes anything that has the meaning of eating and drinking. So something like a nutritional IV drip would count. Other nullifiers include things like intentionally vomiting, the practice of cupping or hijama, the start of menstruation for women, and intentionally causing ejaculation out of desire. Now here's a really interesting principle that might surprise you. The nasal passage is seen as a direct route to the stomach, and we know this because of the Prophet's instruction to be really thorough when you rinse your nose for ablution. But he added one key exception: unless you are fasting. That little detail tells us everything, that anything going up the nose is treated just like something going into the mouth. And here's another super practical point. A common question that comes up: a woman's fast is only broken if her period starts during the fasting hours. So if the sun is completely set, the fast is over, and her period starts even a moment later, her fast for that day, it's complete and totally valid. Okay, listen up. because this next part is maybe one of the most important things to understand about fasting. Just doing one of those nullifying actions doesn't automatically mean your fast is broken. Nope. For the fast to actually be invalidated, three specific conditions have to all be met at the very same time. That's right. It's not enough to just do one of those things. For a fast to truly be broken, three conditions must all be present. So let's take a look at what they are. So what's this crucial trio? First up is knowledge. You have to know that what you're doing actually breaks the fast, and you have to know that it's still fasting time. Second is remembrance. You can't have just forgotten that you were fasting in the first place. And third is intention. The act has to be a deliberate choice, something you do out of your own free will. So let's look at a real-life example for that first condition, knowledge. There's this story where some of the prophet's companions broke their fast on a really cloudy day because they honestly thought the sun had already set. But then, surprise, the sun reappeared. But they weren't ordered to make up that day's fast. Why? Because they acted out of ignorance of the correct time. It was a genuine mistake. Now, what about that second condition, remembrance? Well, this saying from the prophet is the direct evidence we need. If you're fasting and you just completely forget and start eating or drinking, you should simply stop as soon as you remember and just complete your fast. It's not broken. It's considered a gift, a provision from God. And that brings us to our third condition. It has to be intentional. So if something happens that's totally out of your control, like a bunch of dust blows into your throat, or you accidentally swallow a drop of water while rinsing your mouth for prayer, your fast remains valid. Why? Because it wasn't a deliberate choice. Okay, so what if? What happens if someone does meet all three of those conditions and intentionally breaks their fast during Ramadan? What are the consequences? That's what we'll cover in our final section. For breaking our required Ramadan fast with something like food or drink, there's a four-part ruling. First, it is considered a sin. Second, of course, the fast for that day is invalid. Third, you actually have to continue abstaining from food and drink for the rest of that day, out of respect for the month. And fourth, you have to make that day up later on. However, there is one act that is treated with far greater severity, and that's breaking the fast through sexual intercourse. This comes with a fifth and very serious consequence, a heavy expiation known as kafara. This is a major penalty. In order of ability, it requires freeing a slave, fasting for 2 consecutive months without a single break, or, if that's impossible, feeding 60 people in need. And that brings us right back full circle to where we started. After going through all the rules, the regulations, and the consequences, we come back to this fundamental question. The details are important, for sure, but they all serve a higher purpose. Is fasting just a checklist of things you can't do? Or is it a transformative practice designed to build a deeper awareness of God, of yourself, and how you treat others? That's the real question to think about.